Hello, this is Tony Hiller from RealClimateScience.com. Theodore Dalrymple said, "In my study of communist societies, I came to the conclusion that the purpose of communist propaganda was not to persuade or convince, not to inform, but to humiliate, and therefore the less it corresponded to reality, the better." Soviet defector Yuri Bezmenov explained this in great detail.
Only about 15% of time, money, and manpower is spent on espionage as such. The other 85% is a slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country.
These efforts to misinform and demoralize can be seen all over the press every single day. Here's an article from NPR from less than a year ago saying, "Climate change poses an existential threat to the ski industry. Can skiing survive climate change?" Here's an article from CNN from a few weeks ago. "California's climate crisis is intensifying quickly and taking a heavy toll on residents. New data reveals." Another article from a few weeks ago. "Climate change made drought 20 times worse this year, and there's no relief in sight." 1 year ago, the Los Angeles Times announced a no-snow California could come sooner than you think. December 3rd, 2021, winter hasn't quite arrived in Lake Tahoe yet. After this absurd prediction by the Los Angeles Times, California went on to have their snowiest December on record. National Geographic was undaunted by the record snowfall of December 2021 and published this article on Valentine's Day last year. The drought in the western U.S. could last until 2030. Climate change is to blame. Just a few weeks ago, Newsweek announced that California in the West was experiencing the worst mega drought in over 1,000 years. Meanwhile, back in the real world, California is having their coldest and snowiest winter on record, and it's even snowing on the beach. Yosemite National Park is shut down indefinitely due to too much snow. People in Lake Arrowhead, California have had to abandon their homes because the snow is too deep. Southern California is experiencing unprecedented amounts of snow. And the same thing is occurring in Northern California. Ski areas have had to close down because of too much snow. Lake Tahoe is having their coldest and snowiest winter on record. Quite predictably, climate scamsters are changing their story. They're trying to blame the record cold and record snow in California on global warming. This is typical of the sort of climate fraud from academia and the press. Increasingly extreme weather is expected as global temperatures rise. Heat produces moisture, moisture produces storms, and heat and moisture bind to produce even more severe storms. The press and climate academics chose to simply ignore the fact that California is having their coldest winter on record. It's not just California that's cold and snowy. It's happening all over the West. The ski area at Flagstaff, Arizona has received more than 322 inches of snow already this season. Conditions like this haven't always been so good in the West. Over the past 1,200 years, California and the West have experienced multi-century droughts, which were far more intense than the relatively minor droughts California and the West have experienced in recent years. During the year 1791, there was no rain in Southern California during the entire year. California had their worst flood during January 1862, and this was followed immediately by one of their most severe droughts. There was almost no rain from 1862 to 1864 in Southern California, and the drought largely wiped out the cattle ranching business. The cattle ranching business in New Mexico is suffering a different problem right now. There's too much snow in the Valles Caldera west of Los Alamos, New Mexico. So who's paying National Public Radio to misinform the public about climate? Not surprisingly, it's Bill Gates, who's given them tens of millions of dollars. The demoralization goes on endlessly. Failed green energy policies in the United Kingdom have made electricity unaffordable. And the UK government says the solution is to double down on the same failed policies which caused the problem in the first place. In 1981, President Reagan's CIA director, William Casey, said, "We will know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false." It appears that the global intelligence agencies have achieved their goal. The peoples of the United States and Western Europe have become unable to defend themselves against the propaganda being propagated by the press and their own governments. Toto has been pulling back the curtain on the climate scam for the past 15 years. You can visit him, Kyrie Caesar, Toki Upla, and the 4 new puppies on the web at realclimatescience.com.